This is part 2 of our two-part welcome back to the States, the review of our trip. Enjoy the second half of this. If you haven't listened to the first half, it will be available on iTunes, or you can go to our website, thetribelife.family. And yeah, enjoy part 2.
So we're talking about places, but what about worst experience? Like, can you remember any
Worst
one experience?
single.
Yeah, that we had that was like, oh man, I wish this didn't happen. Or
I don't know. I mean, we got sick a couple times.
yeah, I think if for me anything was just that literally the first day we left California, where
Yeah, but see, to me that was so extreme that it was hilarious.
it was, but you didn't get sick that time.
No.
I was sick on the plane with both kids sick, and I was sick, and then I was sick when we got there, and so for me that was pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I got the Australian black lung and I was sick for like a month.
It's true.
I mean, I would say probably the worst experience for me was that Scotland part. So we flew into Scotland. And
the Edinburgh day.
Yeah, so we flew into Edinburgh, but we couldn't get into our Airbnb till 3. And we got there at like 8 a.m.
We did.
And then we had to take but we got into the airplane. And then we needed to take we got off the airplane to the airport, and we had to take the airport to the place near where we were staying
To store our bags for the day.
to store our bags for the day, which is the train station, the main train station in Edinburgh. And then, but we have tons of bags, and it's a pain in the ass to haul them. There's no carts. We haul them down to this area that they say we can store them at. Turns out it's £50 or euro
Per bag or something.
per bag,
Yeah.
and we have 8 bags. So we're like, what do? We've got these huge bags. We can't haul them anywhere else. We can't just leave them anywhere. So we're sitting there being like, okay, we'll try to stuff bags inside other bags. Meanwhile, it's freezing.
It was really cold.
It's piercingly cold. Like,
no,
not
it's
snowing. Like the next day it snowed. And it was warmer because the snow like insulated the air or something. But
I'm pretty sure there's a scientific reason.
there's a scientific reason, but I'm not going to figure it out. But it was to the bone cold, and we're trying to get all this stuff, and we're exhausted. We haven't eaten yet. We haven't converted any money.
Why were we so tired? Was there a time change
From Bali.
from Ireland? I don't.
No, I think we just stayed up really
I think
late.
I think because the flight was really early and we just were tired.
Yeah, it was just we were tired, and it was cold. It was zapped our life, and then we tried to like experience the town. So we're like walking through Edinburgh, and it's beautiful.
It is.
But it's freezing,
It's freezing.
and it's steep, and strollers don't work, and
No, strollers don't work on cobblestones. Just as a
FYI, yo. and then, so what we had to do is we had to take our bags, store a couple of them. We spent like £150
Yeah, it was
or euro,
silly.
whatever they have in Scotland. It's pounds, right? I don't know. We stored those there, and then we took the rest of our bags to another locker at a bus station because the guy who was working at the little zone was like, hey, secret, if you take your stuff to the bus station, you can get another bag you can get
half
one
price.
locker,
Yeah.
and as much as you can fit in the locker.
Right.
It's only $10 for the day or something like that, or £20 for the day. And so we trek what we can over there because it's not all of our bags. We leave those there, and then later in the day we have to go get those. While Oaks and Arrow were freaking out. Oaks was so cold he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was the worst.
I think
day for
our
me.
learning thing from that was like, especially with the family, we could have handled it with the two of us. It'd be totally fine.
Yeah, totally.
We would have 2 bags. We could just put them in the locker and then keep going.
Yeah.
Go sit down at a cafe for 2 hours and get wired on coffee, whatever. But you can't do that with kids. So I think for that experience, we never did that again. Like we never arrived at a place too early. We just wanted to try and make the most of it because we were only there for 2 days.
And it's a gorgeous city.
Yeah, so I think if you can't get into your accommodation by 3, don't catch an early flight is kind of, the lesson learned there.
Yeah.
Unless you have a better game plan on. We should have just got dropped off at the bus station and put all our bags in that bus station.
Yes. But it was hard to find stuff. It was like really hard to find where you could store bags. I thought we could store them at the airport.
Yeah.
And then the airport one was like, nah, we don't do that. Oh, it closed down. The airport one had closed down. Because we got there, and I was planning on storing them at the airport, and the airport one was like, no, there's no place you can store them here. The at the airport bag drop off is closed down, and it was expensive.
Right.
And we would have had to come back to the airport.
It was quite
which was
far
like,
away.
yeah, 30 minutes away or something to get our bags. So
Yeah. Anyway, I
just
mean,
bad story.
yeah.
That was my
As far as
worst.
bad experiences go, we were very lucky. We didn't have any, like.
Oak split his chin open.
I mean, Oaks had a few injuries, but nobody had to go to the hospital. We didn't get anything stolen, and I think
I got a couple of speeding tickets.
Pat got like 4 speeding tickets.
I know. Australia has these like hidden cameras that just can give you tickets versus other countries where they actually have to pull you over. Mm-hmm. But New Zealand and Australia, it's just like, oh, you just drove through hell so fast. Camera, ticket, in the mail.
But I think we were really lucky with, in terms of our poor experiences. We didn't really.
We rear-ended.
Oh yeah.
Ian and Sue.
My uncle Pat rear-ended my uncle.
Okay, let's tell the whole story.
Well, we got all that money back, so that was actually really.
It was a good experience.
Really well.
So it wasn't a good experience. It was a crap experience. We rented this car. We're in Perth.
I mean, give them the cliff notes.
I'm gonna give them the cliff notes.
Okay.
Basically, we're following her uncle around, who's this awesome guy, and they let us stay in their house. And he drives a really nice Land Rover, like awesome car. And I'm following him around.
And he just had it fixed.
And he had just had it fixed because he had just been rear-ended. And we're going through a stoplight, and we're following him. And the stoplight, as he's going through, turns yellow. And he wanted us to continue to be able to follow him.
It was actually still green, I think.
It was still green, but he was in the intersection,
right.
and it had turned yellow. So
right.
he had crossed the line, and it turned yellow. So he goes, kabam, and slams on his brakes. And I was like, just for the split second that was happening, I was like looking away, and I looked back, not thinking that anyone would stop there. And all of a sudden he's there. So I slam on the brakes, slide in, and just munch the car right up under it.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
It was so bad. So we have to go through the insurance companies. I have to take time out to go to Eurocar. And we have this credit card. We have the Chase Reserve Sapphire card, which was awesome, by the way. If you're traveling around the world, that gets you into all these, like globally, it'll get you into all the...
Air lounges
that have free food and free alcohol.
Yeah.
So you can go into these places and feed your family, which that alone is priceless. Not priceless, but it's like...
It's not priceless because you have to pay for the card.
Yeah, well, you have to pay... Well, I'll tell them the details of the card if you want. But the details of the card basically is you pay $300 a year for the card, but they get $400 a year, but they give you 300 of travel credits. So you only actually pay $100 if you actually use those travel credits for traveling, and then you get all these bonuses.
Well, and also, so with the points that you get double points when you book any travel and any food, right?
Triple points. And so basically, most of our, I would say over half of our rental cars on that trip were paid for through points. For sure. And
then we're going to New Zealand in a few months, and all our rental car and our accommodation at some places are going to be paid through our points as well. So
long story short with this, basically we rear-end them, but with that credit card, if you pay for your rental with that credit card, they tell you to decline the damage liability waiver, which they always ask you, hey, do you have insurance? Do you want insurance? Blah, blah, you're liable for everything. And so we declined it, and with fingers crossed that everything would work out, ends up damaging the car, and we get a quote back for it, and the quote back for it is we have to pay the full amount of this deductible that comes with the car. So it was a $3,500 deductible. It was a $4,200 deductible, but it was in Australian dollars, so it ends up being like $3,700 US. We end up paying that deductible, so it takes it out of our credit card, $4,200 Australian or $3,700 US. But I went through the claims process. I gave them all the receipts, and I'm like expecting it totally not to work. And all of a sudden, after like a month and a half of going through this claims process, boom, they just sent us a check. They just deposited it straight into our account, the full amount. So we paid nothing. And it was fully covered. So that was a good experience.
It turned out to be a good
experience. I did not think was going to work out that way. I was like, well, there's $4,000 that we lost.
Yep.
Yeah. So good card. Chase says Sapphire Reserve. Sponsor us. Chase, Sapphire Reserve. Give us an account.
So I know we touched on this real quick with the other podcast we did before we left, but I thought we could just quickly talk about like how we pay for our trips. So we're about to go on another, just a quick 1 month trip to New Zealand to see family, and Pat has to do a CrossFit seminar there. And the only way that we can do these trips, even the short trips to New Zealand, because New Zealand's really expensive to fly to, is we rent out our house, and we have a small unit that we also rent out while we're away. And we're very lucky to live in a place that is quite desirable for people to come and visit. So our house usually will always get rented out. And yeah, that's basically really it. And we work remotely, so we can work anywhere. And what usually happens is that before we go away or after we go away, we do big chunks of work and spend a bit more time working. I know that's my goal anyway, is to try and get stuff done. And then while we're traveling, it's more just trying to maintain stuff. And if anything comes up, we, deal with it. But it's pretty much just life as usual, but just on the road.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest key that we had was creating a life that we can work on the road. Mm-hmm. So we earn money wall from our computers, so like we can be anywhere. So
but we also have a mortgage, so we can't pay for accommodation and pay for our mortgage. Right.
So step one was figuring out a way to be away from home and working there. Step two was figuring out a way to justify, or not justify, but be able to rent our house. Mm-hmm. And we have an Airbnb that we rent, and we also have our house that we rent on Airbnb when we're out of it. And those two things combined allowed for almost ultimate freedom.
And we also even if we go away for weekends, we put our house on Airbnb, and it's a lot of work. Like we spend half the day cleaning it and getting it ready, but for us, it's worth it because we, make a little bit of cash for 3 days, and we can put that towards travel or upgrades on the house or whatever we want. And I think people are resistant to do that because it's hard work.
It is. Cleaning the house is hard work. Allowing people to be in your space and funk it up, and they're kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah.
And
we do a sage burn every time.
you gotta do the sage burn when you get back. I even made a sage pipe that I can walk around with my sage pipe and sage burn the house. I look like Popeye.
You do look like Popeye. I just wanted to quickly talk about that.
But that's how we do it, and with the house and stuff, it pretty much breaks even. Sometimes makes us a bit of a profit.
Yeah, when we traveled on this big 5-month trip, we actually we didn't go into any debt because we weren't paying $2,000 a month for our kids' schooling.
Right.
And now we're home and we haven't put them back into school. We're still we're not saving that money anymore because it's obviously doesn't no longer is part of our budget.
Life, yeah.
But that was a big chunk, and now that we know that we can be around our kids 24/7 and still deal with what we need to deal with and have a life outside of that, we are quite happy doing that. I think that's another podcast though.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to quickly, we've got 2 more things here. What happened when we got home in terms of what were your biggest, reflecting on the trip, days, weeks later, what was the biggest thing for you that you took from the trip as yourself and the family, and that you kind of miss or would like to keep doing or are struggling with?
Yeah. I think it's kind of a 2-part question. The things that I took away from the trip were, I guess it all wraps up into one thing, is kind of something I mentioned in the beginning, which is being away and away from home, out of your routine. You're forced to spend time with each other in a different way, unless you're a dickhead and you get wrapped up in your phone, which is totally doable. But as long as you can let go of your phone, you end up being forced to spend time with your family and figure out ways to make that work. It goes for my relationship with you. It also goes for my relationship with my kids. Our kids. Sorry. Oaks.
My dad.
So being on the trip really brought a level of closeness between me and the boys that I don't think we had before. Because it's not like I live a pretty ridiculous life once I'm here and I'm always gone and all this other stuff, but I'm always distracted when I'm here. And I noticed that when I went on the trip, I got a lot closer to our oldest, Oaks, and Aaron and I have always been close, but we could spend a lot of time with him, and that was awesome. Mm. That was my favorite thing about the entire trip, was the closeness of the relationship that I learned that I could have with the 2 boys. since being home, I think the biggest challenge that I have now is that I found myself after about 3 weeks falling back into my old patterns of like, there's always something I can be doing here, whether it's work or house maintenance or going for a surf or hanging out with friends. Like, there's always things that I can be doing. And since the kids are kind of taken care of, like my mom can come over or we can get a babysitter, or like we have this patterning here to where we can shift the kids off onto other people. We don't have to spend that time with them because we're not in a foreign country where we don't know anybody. I find myself separating out that closeness that I got while I was on this trip. So I think the next step for me is consciously incorporating them into my life in a way that I can still do the stuff like build a fence or, build a deck or whatever it is, and not completely remove myself for like 3 days from their lives.
Right.
So like that's my big takeaways from the trip and then since being home.
Yeah, and I think mine are exactly the same, just different things. Like, I just have different things that I'm doing or getting distracted by. But that's basically exactly, and I think that's why, even though we've been home a month and I'm really loving being home and in our house and with our friends and our family, but it's almost like I'm like, and we are going to New Zealand, but I'm kind of like thinking, well, how can we get away again so we can have that closeness, which is kind of ridiculous because we can just create here, like you said. Like, we just need to be better at setting those boundaries with each other and our life.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like all those silly things that, like booking appointments and, okay, well, I've got to take the kids to the dentist today and then this and that. And like, when you're away, you just don't have that stuff.
That's so nice.
It's like you're not staying in your own house. You don't have to worry about cleaning it. You just put the dishes in the dishwasher and then you leave the house and it's done. Whereas here, it's like constantly like washing every day, So I think, same as you, just trying to not slip back into the same routines. And
what would happen if we just forced that we can only clean on Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to just do 2 loads of washing a day. A week.
Just like 2 loads a day.
Yeah, that's just my life.
Just load the dishwasher
and also,
up 6 or 7 times.
I've let go a lot. Like, as you can, I like everything to be clean. I like everything to be ordered.
That job.
And if you look at our house and like outside right now, like there's stuff everywhere and it's hard for me to look at it. And I keep being like, oh, I need to clean it. But I'm just sort of like, doesn't matter. Can wait a couple of days. So someone asked a question about like our relationship and how do we deal with like the small petty things? So like in the moment when you know that you're being irrational, but you can't help but say the wrong thing anyway. Like, I think we've reduced that a lot in our lives. I think we still say the wrong thing to each other occasionally. But I think on the trip we did a pretty good job. I think we had like 2 kind of big chats. Like we were like, okay, we need to regroup. This isn't working.
One in South Africa.
One was in South Africa. I think we just had that one. Yeah. And then a couple of other small ones about like, silly things like, okay, I need my time to go surfing. I need my time to do this. For you, it was like, you need your time. And for me, it was like, well, I'm bad at creating my own time. So I think those were the 2 things that were ongoing. But in terms of like snapping at each other, like I would say, I'll just answer this one first.
Okay.
It's sort of like, for us, I think we dug a bit deeper and looked into like, why were those things bothering us in the first place, rather than just like snapping at them. So like, why were you getting resentful towards certain things? Why was I getting resentful towards certain things? And then we addressed those like a while ago. And addressing those issues, like you not cleaning up after yourself and things like that, was kind of one of them a while ago. And I don't get nearly as annoyed with stuff like that as I used to. I think just addressing them before they happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, because it's the person was asking like in the moment, right?
In the moment, how do you not react? Yeah.
I think in the moment, things get better if you work on stuff outside of the moment.
That's
right?
Yeah,
which
exactly
is what you were
I'm
saying.
Right.
And the way I have to work on stuff outside the moment is saying I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, I'm a dickhead, is hard to do, and I don't want to do it all the time. So if I keep on having to apologize for the same thing, I feel like more and more of a dickhead. So I think what's happening for me is that I'm catching myself in the moment because I don't want to have to apologize for it later. Right? Mm-hmm. So the work goes on outside the moment when I can reflect back on it and be like, that was petty and stupid. And now I have to come forward and say, hey, that was petty and stupid. I'm sorry. Even though I still feel like you should say sorry.
Right.
Like, like having to try to work through that outside the heated moment makes me not want to have to work through that all the time because it hurts and it's hard and it sucks.
Right.
But so it makes like sets that little twinge in my head of being like, when I go to get mad or when I go to do something like that or when I go to be petty, it's like, I'm going to have to apologize for this later. So resolving it on a personal level helps me once I get to the actual moment where I'm going to do it again. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way I can say it. And it's not that we don't slip up anymore. And I think in the moment we still are petty and do stuff, but I think we're quicker and quicker to apologize.
Exactly.
And we choose not to do it more and more often because we realize it's petty.
Yeah.
And then I think what you're saying is perfect. Like a way to get over those things is you go, why to yourself. Why am I doing this? Okay.
Right.
Well, why am I doing that? Okay. Well, why am I doing that? Like ask the question 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Get back to the root of it.
Why is it upsetting him that I do that? Why is it upsetting him? Like,
because she never offers to be on top, like whatever. It'll work itself.
Totally.
Yeah. It'll work itself back to something where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this has to do with something well outside this conversation, but I need to resolve that. So let's have a deeper conversation when we're not heated about that. So the petty shit doesn't get there.
Yeah, the petty shit is always definitely something deeper and underlying.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like, because I'm pregnant right now, and sometimes I'm just cranky.
Yeah.
But I know I'm being irrational. Like, I know, but I'm not stopping myself because the hormones, they just won't let me.
Yeah, those damn hormones. Those hormones get me too when she's pregnant.
Your hormones change as well?
Yeah, I'm always like, oh, damn hormones.
Would you do the 5 months again? Would you go on a similar trip again?
Yeah, I would definitely go on a similar trip again. I think I really, really loved that trip. I mean, there's things I would do differently.
Yeah, well, give me 2 things you do differently.
2 things I'd do differently are I would bring a surfboard with me from the beginning rather than buying one and having to try out new ones, different spots, and hope I got all that stuff and just suck up the payment. And I would not do as many stops along the way. And what I mean by that is like when I'm in a country, stay in like 1 or 2 places and do like day trips out to places rather than do them all. But I say that, but I don't think I would do that if I'd never been to those places.
Right.
So when you first go to a country, so like this is our first time exploring South Africa, first time exploring Australia, first time exploring Ireland and Scotland. I think in the future, instead of exploring, I would go to a place because I generally know where I want to go and stay in those places for longer periods of time.
Right.
That was what we talked about with my anxiety is like when we were in Ireland, we were in a place for like a day, maybe 2 days, constantly. So it was unpack, pack,
just for the first week. It seemed like a long time for you, but it was only a week we did that.
It seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
We were only in Ireland for like 3 weeks at the most. But yeah, I know it's hard for you to do
Ireland,
that.
Scotland, England.
Yeah.
It was like Airbnbs every other night, new Airbnb, find the way to get in, find the town, where's it going to eat, get the kids down, like da-da-da. It was just like...
Yeah, that's really hard for you.
Yeah, that's what creates anxiety for me. So I think that I would do the same trip again if it was my first trip ever, like doing to these places, because you have to explore the place to figure out what you like. But knowing what I know, moving forward, I would do a different trip. I would spend more time in specific places.
And I think for kids, so I don't have a problem with tripping around places. I actually quite enjoy it. But I think for kids, the longer you can stay in a place, the better. That you can create a little routine around it. You can get to know the town. You usually meet people, and you get into the time zone and stuff like that. And it's probably why you enjoyed those last few weeks in Australia too, because we were in Noosa for like a week.
Yeah, it was great.
Byron Bay for, a week. So,
I think too, as a surfer, like
and you're a surfer.
You don't get to know a spot
Right.
until you've experienced it like 3 or 4 times. Like I
Yeah.
feel totally not comfortable
Yeah.
just going to a spot for a day and being like, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, here's your 2-hour window, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
I don't even know where to paddle out on this beach.
And
let
I think
alone
also
surfing.
as a bigger picture, like we're saying how going traveling in the eyes of the kids, I think what we kind of really overlooked a lot of the time is that we travel differently too. Like what you're looking for when we travel versus what I'm looking for are really different. Like you're basically like, you're very surf oriented. And I know that, so I cater a lot of the places to go to the surf. Whereas for me, that's not really in the forefront of my mind. Like I'm more about just doing stuff and experiencing things and finding adventures and stuff. So I think like when you're planning a trip, you and your husband also need to be on board. Like, sure, maybe you can't surf every single day if it's a 3-week vacation, that's just not going to happen. And then maybe I just need to be okay, well, you're going to surf 2 hours. If we're at like a surf spot, you're going to surf a couple of hours every day. But I think you need to find that balance before you go on your trip.
Yeah.
And have those conversations before, rather than getting there and being disappointed that you don't get to go on a hike because your husband's surfing or your wife is surfing or you both want to surf or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you have the same goal at the end.
Not the same goal,
Not
just
the
an
same
understanding of what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah.
Because people are different. Some people, and we've talked about this, I will always look out for myself, and I'm never going to be in a place where I'm like, well, it's okay that I'm not getting to do anything that I want. Yeah,
it's really hard for you to do that.
It's really hard for me to do that. And like the only way that happens is if like what I want is other people to get what they want. Yeah. And there's times in my mind and my psychology where I can make that happen.
We went out for dinner the other day, and Pat really likes hamburgers, and we went to a place that didn't have French fries, and it was so hilarious to me because he when he saw that there weren't French fries with his hamburger, like he couldn't get over it. Like he just
all I wanted
there.
Was French fries with my hamburger.
He sat there and he didn't talk for a good 10 minutes, and he was just sitting there sulking about.
Well, we were also with my mom, and my mom was antagonizing me.
You can use whatever excuse you want. It was so funny because I realized that you like to get what you want.
I do, but not all the time.
No.
I think there's specific things that I like to get what I want. Like, here's what it is. If I have my mind that I'm going to get X, Y, or Z, and I position myself to get X, Y, or Z, and then I don't get X, Y, or Z.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because yesterday, when I said, let's go to Whole Foods, because I knew that Whole Foods would have the Siete chips I wanted. And then when we didn't go to Whole Foods, and you went to those other shops, and you said, they don't have the chips you wanted.
Oh, how'd that feel?
I was really sad because I wanted those chips, and I'm pregnant.
Meanwhile, she's lying at home doing nothing while I'm out with our tiny child going to 2 stores
doing nothing.
Trying to get it so we can go to the beach and have a good time. And so I'm visiting multiple places, and they just happen to have the wrong flavor of chip. Mm-hmm. And she's sitting on the couch eating ho-hos, twiddling her hair, doing nothing.
You don't have to justify it. It's okay. I'm just saying. I know the feeling.
I feel like you're being petty right now. On camera. Petty.
I was actually trying to make you feel better because I was giving you an example of how I felt.
I'm not serious.
Oh, okay. It sounded like you were.
Well, I'm sorry you felt like I was serious.
Okay.
Well,
that's it.
We have to resolve this.
Okay.
You look really pretty right now. I don't think I look at you enough for long enough periods of time. I try to avoid looking at you so that when I look at you, it's like a new wife. You do look really pretty right now.
Thank you, honey.
I'm sorry for calling you petty.
It's okay.
I'm sorry that you were being petty. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being patient with us while we got back into the swing of things. We should have a few more episodes coming up pretty soon here. We got some people lined up that we'd love to talk to about parenting. We're going to do our best to get a few people on board
who don't have as similar mindsets as us. I think that was some of the feedback that we got. So we're looking forward to getting some people on the show who've got a little bit different perspective on things, if not a drastically different perspective on things. So if you know anybody that you think might make sense for us to have on the show, it would be a good conversation. If you know of anyone like that, you can send that info to thetribelifefamily@gmail.com. That's thetribelifefamily@gmail.com, and we would love to get their info and potentially get them on board and have a conversation with someone who's either not the same as us or just some interesting parents out there that you'd love to hear their stories and get their perspective. Alrighty, thank you very much for listening. See you again soon.